I did one take of this already, but it was a bit too rambly for my taste. So I think I'm going to stick a bit more to what I wrote here, and I might intercut some of the first take in here as well. Anyways, I can feel which way the wind is blowing. I can see on a level that I've never seen before how upset people are with the way the world is. How many people are seeing the corruption in our world. And when I first started writing this, I started by making all of these claims as to why the world is so fucked up. But I don't think that's necessary. Bo Burnham did enough of that for us. To make claims that change is needed, that radical change is needed, almost seems redundant. Like, I think we all understand that. I think we all know that. I don't find it to be necessary to convince anybody. And so, instead of making any sort of claims like that today, any specific claims, I wanted to come here to ask, when the old world is overtaken, what shall come in its place? When our pitchforks have been dulled and our torches have set ablaze, what kind of world will we birth from the ashes? I feel it very necessary to pose this question and to talk about such big, lofty ideas. Because with the discourse that I'm seeing, with the kinds of changes that I'm seeing people call for, there is a beautiful opportunity that we will have to usher in a world of, to create something that is for the best of humanity, for all of humanity. Something that isn't taking advantage of like our system is now. Taking advantage of its people, its earth. Something different from what we understand. Something different from the world that we've been given, from the world that our parents were given, from the world that our grandparents were given, and great-grandparents even. Yeah, great-grandparents. Right now, we are at the culmination of generations of fuckery and corruption, of a seizing of power, of a game that's been played. So I think right now is such an important time to have this conversation. And yeah, that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to open that up. And I'm also here to say that in doing so, in opening up this conversation, I want to make it clear that I don't have all the answers. That no one person can have all of the answers. Because for us to create something that is for the best of all humanity, it has to be like this journey of discovery, of figuring shit out along the way. And so with this video, I want to open up that dialogue. So that we can take the first few steps. It's going to be hard to fathom. And if we want it to be for the best of everybody, we have to consider everybody. So, yeah. I'm aware of the kind of irony, the paradoxical irony of that previous statement and then going on to tell you my own ideas, but maybe that's just my own self-doubt. But here goes anyways. If we are to create something that is for the better of all humanity, I believe that at its core, at the core of whatever we proceed with, has to be love. We have to be able to fully, truly, genuinely show love to ourselves and to everybody around us, to all of humanity itself. And I think this is going to be kind of a difficult thing in the first few steps because of how warped the idea of love has become, how detached we've become from love. Because of that, generations of entrenched societal norms and behaviors that are poisonous. That's a video for another time, I think, of searching for those poisons that are still manifest within us because of the incentives of this world that we're trying to leave behind. It's really hard to figure out exactly where to start here. Because when talking about things like this, I mean, we're talking about some of the biggest ideas that we could possibly fathom as people. We're talking about humanity coming together, all of humanity coming together to do what's best for everybody. I mean, that's the goal. Why should it be anything less? If we're looking for change, for radical change, if we see how fucked everything is, and we're willing to take a chance to create a new opportunity for ourselves, why should we settle for anything less other than absolute harmony? So, before talking about loving everybody, before talking about being able to love all of humanity, I think it's important to talk about loving oneself. So what does it feel like to love yourself? It can be super easy to forget this when just going about our days and holding in mind our goals that we have for ourselves and our external responsibilities like cleaning, responsibilities to other people, our relationships, all of that stuff. I don't think I need to elaborate too much further. But I think it's way too easy for us to hold these things in a higher priority, in a higher regard than our own well-being. And so that's what I think loving ourselves is. It's being able to recognize our own well-being and respond to it, responding to our needs, really. When I say well-being, that's what I'm talking about, is our most fundamental needs on the level of like needs that we understand very readily, like food, water, shelter, clothing, those protection from natural elements. But then there's also the parts of our well-being which haven't been prioritized, which haven't been emphasized in the generations and generations of this societal entrapment, which is that of our mental wellness and our emotional wellness. And pervading all of those things, every aspect of life, is a spiritual wellness. And this is where I asked myself some questions in writing. Right? We're talking about our well-being and our needs and how loving ourselves is responding to those things. I had to check in with myself. What does it look like to take care of ourselves in these ways? How does it relate to the creation of this new world? And my answer to myself was, it is our guiding compass on this journey of discovery. Especially in the first few steps that we take. Because it's ridiculous, honestly, to think that in one moment, boom, we're all just going to be loving each other, taking care of each other, even have the capabilities to do such a thing. And so I'm really focusing in right now on the individual aspect, loving ourselves, where this all begins. And I think I write more later. I elaborate further. Yes. Loving ourselves in this way is a way of life in of itself. By responding to one's well-being, we'll find out all of the things that are helping and harming us. We'll learn what remedies we need for certain specific feelings. Do we need rest? Do we need to do something completely crazy and new? Do we need a new experience to shake things up? Do we need to laugh? Do we need to cry? Do we need to be serious? Do we need to be boldly strong and steadfast? Or do we need to be vulnerable? After long enough of doing this, of just paying attention to your well-being and figuring out how to respond to those needs, after long enough of that, we'll find ourselves flying so high that we couldn't possibly imagine ever struggling again until the end of time. This kind of goes into a different idea. Another aspect of this sort of attention given to our needs. And this is really, it's so much more talking about the mental and emotional needs. We understand the food, the water, the shelter, all that stuff. But these remedies that I'm talking about, do we need to laugh? Do we need to cry? Do we need to be serious? Do we need to be strong and steadfast? Do we need to be vulnerable? Do we need to rest? None of these... Fuck it. My camera keeps fucking cutting on me. All of those things that I listed, those don't have anything to do with food, water, or shelter. Those are all the emotional and mental parts, the spiritual parts of our well-being. Parts that we've been led astray from. So much of this, I think, ties into what I've said about work, about how toxic that word has become. How we'll sacrifice these mental and emotional needs because of external incentives, which most of the time predate upon those needs that we understand: food, water, shelter. Sorry if I'm being so repetitive. But this aspect of we find ourselves flying so high that we couldn't possibly imagine ever struggling again until the end of time. That is, until something completely new happens, so that new needs arise. Or maybe something familiar happens, so as to remind us of an old, unresolved feeling that we have a new chance to reconcile. Excuse me. Along with loving ourselves and developing this skill of responding to our needs, after long enough of doing so, we'll find that our needs are constantly going to be changing. We're always going to be finding new things. And yeah, I actually write about it. I really can sometimes just read through this. Until something completely new happens, so that new needs arise. Or maybe something familiar happens so as to remind us of old unresolved feelings that we have a new chance to reconcile. Between these things, either way, it's a never-ending process, the practice of which allows for the most graceful dance through change that we can muster. I hope that makes sense. What I'm getting at is that loving ourselves in this way is a practice. It's something that we can get good at, just like playing guitar. And so, when new things happen, when we see those new needs arise, or we get reminded of something from the past that, oh shit, we still have to deal with this. When those things happen, we'll be so trained to respond to those needs after practice and practice and practice and practice. And so now, stepping away from the individual level and looking at applying this love to a global scale, I honestly, I can't have the answers for this. The best I can do is give my ideas to direct our attention to addressing the obvious needs that we understand. I will reiterate: food, water, protection from the elements. These are things that have not been provided to all of humanity. There's still starvation. People still die from the elements. In supposedly first world countries as well. People freezing on the streets. As I record this, there are Arctic winds blowing through the Midwest. People are freezing in the streets. But as far as how we provide this for people, this is where the conversation really opens up. This is where our collective discovery begins. And let us not take this lightly, because all of us have something to offer. All of us know something that nobody else does. All of us are a part of our little subgroups and communities within the scope of humanity, each group being a wealth of knowledge and power. Our chefs, our botanists, our artists, our builders, our chemists, our engineers, our tailors, our mechanics, our pilots and captains, our farmers, our delivery drivers, our humanitarian volunteers. Those people probably have a lot of goddamn experience and stuff like this. I would love to hear from them. Personally, I would love to hear from everybody, but personally, I would love to have a conversation with, people who are going out to, never mind. All of us, though, all of us have something to offer, and that is the nature of this new world.